With League of Legends mid-season invitational done and dusted, there's just too much to ignore. A silent Busan auditorium, a trophy wheeled out in a practice room, a new MSI world record, artificial ping, a T1 and Faker that came so close and then faltered, and a contentious interview response from a coach. I just hope that when Worlds rolls around, we get a rematch of this MSI Grand Finals. Alright, before we get into the video, we've got a new series launching this Thursday called Worth, and it's about the stories in esports worth telling. Our first episode will be about the greatest stand-in performance in esports history. Keep your eyes peeled for that, don't miss it. Let's get into the video. MSI was great this year, but in a lot of ways, it was pretty unusual. For one, because of COVID-related restrictions set by the Chinese government, LPL Spring winners Royal Never Give Up were forced to play remotely. That meant Riot had to artificially create ping for the other teams in the tournament in order to compensate. And when there were issues with that system, 3 of RNG's group stage matches had to be replayed. But even more than that, it felt like this MSI was a chance for T1 to truly prove their ability. If you're not familiar with the recent news on T1, they just came off a title-winning split where they went perfect in match score in the incredibly competitive LCK. Excitingly, the Faker and 4 Zoomers composition of the team looked as if it was becoming even stronger, and I really don't think Faker needs an introduction at this point. But if you want to catch up on what he's been doing recently, you can check out the Story of T1 LOL, which we released recently and was written by yours truly, or check out the Don't At Me about the perfect season that Danny did. It was awesome. So this MSI represented a valuable opportunity for an internationally inexperienced roster, besides Faker of course, to test themselves against the world's best. And listen, heading into this tournament, you'd be forgiven for believing that T1 pretty much had this thing in the bag.
T1 自赛事之初，我就知道我们终究会在总决赛相遇。虽然许多人觉得你们是世界上最伟大的队伍，但是即将到来的决赛将决定谁才是真正的至尊王者。
And part of the reason for that is that the LPL's representative, Royal Never Give Up, is not exactly the team that everybody thought would be here. T1, on the other hand, has been a major story, and they've shown incredibly focused and oppressive early game play. That's not by accident. Riot have literally changed the game in a recent patch they call the Champion Durability Update to intentionally move away from champions being able to instantly blow up other champions. So it's something even the devs are thinking about. RNG were simply not that kind of early game focused team. They outlasted opponents and finished the game. But one thing that T1 and RNG do both have in common are their veteran mid laners. RNG's seasoned mid laner Xiaohu won MSI last year, but he was playing a completely different position. See, Xiaohu's been around for a while. He made his pro debut in Season 5 at age 17. Last year, it was thought that the mid lane pool in the LPL was just too deep for him to keep swimming around while wearing, I assume, an old man bathing suit, an inflatable scuttle crab pool toy. He's 24. I don't know why I'm leaning really hard into the old man thing, but anyways, he had to switch to top lane last year, and he did a very good job while adapting his playstyle to be a little bit more conservative and supportive than he had in the past, though we still saw some of those flashes of brilliance that had made him such a mechanically exciting mid laner. But in 2022, the team acquired Bim, the top laner who had gone to Worlds 2020 Grand Finals with Suning. Suddenly, Xiaohu was back in the mid lane. And so in Grand Finals at MSI 2022, who else does Xiaohu see across from him but another journeyman mid and a living symbol of Korea's esports greatness, Faker. Like I said, these two teams play pretty differently. So when they met in the Grand Finals at MSI, it wasn't only this international clash with old man mids on both sides, but also potentially a verdict on their two styles. Bin has been criticized for perceived inconsistency in the past, but he was locked in this tournament, and a big key to that was Gwen, a champion that is frankly kind of balanced around having a weaker early game before she really comes online later. So T1 and RNG meet in the grand finals, and in game 1, Bin absolutely pops off on Gwen, going 13-0-3. Keep that in mind. Then in game 2, we get this ridiculous Baron play that helps seal the game for T1.
A Jinx and a Tahm Kench versus a team of Baron. You've seen this before. The charm flashed away by Gumayusi. Faker looking to get in from the back of the pit. Frozen Tomb available for him. RNG calling T1's bluff, and Faker finds them all! Gumayusi, Carrier, and Faker will not go quietly into the night. Form is temporary. Faker is forever!
This was a back and forth series, and in game 4, we got to see Faker on LeBlanc at MSI. Yeah, it's awesome, and it's a champion he's known for.
Which I think is so interesting to watch. Looking for Faker now.
Trying to get underneath the tower, needs to dodge away from the Everfrost, the charm, the root, he dodges perfectly! Oh, Faker, you beautiful man, escapes the 3-man dive.
What was that?
So, after T1 brings RNG to a game 5, RNG rightly bans the champion that got them there, LeBlanc. But Bin's Gwen did not get the same respect. It went unbanned, but not only that, after it was first picked in game 5, T1 literally picked Jace into it, and that's a pretty rough matchup for Zeus to have to navigate. Then T1 blind picked an Ahri Wukong mid-jungle duo, which was immediately counterpicked. They picked up Jhin for Gumayusi, and Keria locked in Yuumi at the end of the draft. Also, Ahri, Jhin, and Jace all rely heavily on projectiles. Now, Gwen's Hallowed Mist ability makes her invulnerable to projectiles, so not a great pick overall, right? It's a draft that, on paper, looks less than ideal, but in game, things were even worse.
But yeah, you just start acceleration gate, because then when Bin goes forward,
you can't get on. Carrier cannot jump back onto Gumayusi. The chase is on. The ignite is ticking, and Ming will claim first blood.
Maybe it's a stretch to say that this draft lost them the game immediately, but it certainly didn't help them, and RNG were uncharacteristically able to take control of the early game and just dominate the rest of it.
Xiaohu, the little tiger, has roared into life. The LPL continue their era of dominance, and they are leaving no one alive. It's RNG's world, and we're just living in it.
What a performance from RNG here across the series.
So RNG take the series. They become MSI champions again, and it clearly shows that Riot had the right idea, making sure that this team was able to compete at this event. But for Xiaohu, it's a special moment. He's now won 3 MSI titles in his career, which is a record and one that he shares with his teammate Ming. But notably, Xiaohu did it on 2 different roles in back-to-back years. It's unprecedented. The guy is writing his own legend before our eyes right now. But the trophy presentation was less than stellar, obviously, as RNG were literally sitting in a room in Shanghai instead of in the venue in Busan. And it clearly wasn't the same as popping off in front of a crowd. And with the Korean home team taking home second place, the venue was also eerily quiet. It doesn't stop there though. Obviously, there were plenty of expectations for T1, and in a post-match interview published by Invin Global, T1 general manager and coach Polt appeared to dump a lot of the responsibility for the Game 5 loss on not having Blue Side. Now, to be fair, no one's arguing that Blue Side isn't an advantage in the draft. Being able to pick that first champion just fundamentally shapes the draft process, and it is important. Even at this tournament, MSI 2022, you can see Blue has a several percentage point edge here. But RNG was able to pick Blue Side first because of their performance earlier in the tournament. And if you can't win games on Red Side, how are you gonna win Worlds? Now, Blue Side did win every game in this series, and maybe Polt truly believes that had they played Blue Side again, the trend would have continued. But let's just be real here. The draft that we got in Game 5 can't be completely excused, and after all, this was a response to a question about the draft. If you're a T1 fan, there's a lot to like here. Even though they lost MSI, they still place second, and the roster seems to be getting stronger instead of stagnating or something. The young players around Faker will benefit from this experience when they inevitably attempt to make their run at Worlds. Now to the West. If you're an NA fan, EG's run to the semis is one of the most exciting runs by an NA team in some time. And even though they did get smashed once they arrived at the semis, the team is young and absolutely packed with talent. Getting there at all is an accomplishment for real. But if anything, the expectations are even higher now. EG's Danny actually tweeted about how the season can be pretty jam-packed if you're, winning. So hopefully they figure out a way to balance it all and come back stronger. Now, G2 started strong in the Rumble stage, going 4-0 with wins against teams like RNG and T1. But things kind of fell apart from there. They only won 1 of their next 5 games, and the slump continued into the bracket stage where T1 casually swept them aside 3-0. Though they had a rough finish, I think a semis appearance for this team was important. Hopefully they get some data about this international competition and their analysts and coaches can come away with some answers for them the next time they face off. This MSI was one of the most interesting I can remember. And even at a tournament that can constantly surprise you as a fan and a viewer, this one was weirder than normal. Sure, some things were maybe what you'd expect. A banger China versus Korea final, NA and EU going out in semis. Other things felt very different, like the eventual champions playing from a practice room in Shanghai instead of at the venue because of COVID, or perhaps the artificial ping that had to be implemented to accommodate that arrangement. And finally, Faker and crew, who looked pretty much unstoppable, hitting a wall. What did you guys think? For me, I want to see the Faker Xiaohu rematch at Worlds. And hey, we all thought this was the year of T1. Maybe this is the year of Xiaohu. Just saying, who knows, right? Let me know what you guys loved about the tournament, what you disliked, what you thought was weird in the comments below. I like to take a pass through and see what you guys think every time I do one of these videos. We'll catch you next time. I don't have any hot water. Tried to shave, but then I was like, I will rip apart my face with a razor if I use cold water. So I didn't do that. I just got in the shower and I just screamed throughout the entire shower. And then I came downstairs and looked at myself in the camera and I'm like, wow, the facial hair is not really working, but I can't. Like, would you rather have this or would you rather have my face look like it was carpet bombed by one of the great powers of World War I? Like, no, I had to do what I had to do.